Oh, well, a young man ain't nothing in this world these days.
Because I'm compelled, I'm speaking about myself as a black man, now listen. I'm compelled to doubt my history, to examine it. I'm compelled to try to create it.
I said a young man ain't nothing in this world these days.
In his 1969 book, Black on White, A Critical Survey of Writing by American Negroes, David Littlejohn speaks on black writers, stating, "White readers saddened, then burdened, then numbed by the deadly sameness, the bleak wooden round of ugly emotions and ugly situations, the same small frustrated dreams, the same issues and charges and formulas and events repeated over and over in book after book. Economic oppression, dehumanization, ignominious role-playing, the constant dealing with the very bottom of the human heap. The responding spirit is dulled, finally bored by the iteration of hopelessness, the sordid limitations of the soul in the tight closet of the black imagination." He sees black writers as confined to their situation, dragging the reader into the dredges of race and reality. He goes on to quote Baldwin in his 1956 book, The Fire Next Time. "White Americans seem to feel that happy songs are happy and sad songs are sad, and that, God help us, is exactly the way most white Americans sing them, sounding, in both cases, so hopelessly, defensively fatuous, and one not dare speculate on the temperature of the deep freeze from which issue their brave and sexless little voices." Despite his racist distinctions of black and white writers, Littlejohn brings up a key point: the fact that black writers are forced to confront race, and that by audiences they are expected to do so in their writing. The clip I played earlier of Baldwin's debate with William F. Buckley in 1965 hammers that home, where Baldwin is not forced only to confront his history, but to create it. And through his work as an activist in both the civil rights movements and the gay liberation movement of the mid-20th century, he does. First, it'd be a solid idea to lay out who James Baldwin is, because really, aside from being a revolutionary writer, he's also an activist operating in both the civil rights movement and the gay liberation movement, well outside the realm of creative activism. And his tenure in these movements stretches from the late 40s and early 50s, past the passing of the Civil Rights Bill in 1964, past Stonewall in the summer of 1969, past Fred Hampton's murder in December of the same year, past his last novel in 1979, into the HIV/AIDS epidemic in 1984, and until his death in 1987. Whatever biography I could provide Baldwin would not do his works justice, and no amount of time on this video would grant me adequate space to assess the writer as a person, as an identity, and as a historical figure. No, for the purpose of this video, I want to see just how James Baldwin tackled, through his work as an activist and his work as a writer, because, honestly, the two are synonymous, but I make the distinction to separate the social and cultural impact of his creative prose and the impact of his boots-on-the-ground activism. Through his work, James Baldwin put out the radical idea that, regardless of race, class, or ethnicity, a person could be queer. It was shocking, really, at the time, that a black man was writing about white middle-class or even bourgeois characters being gay. These weren't works just talking about the dredges of racial trauma. These were works depicting the lies and intricacies of queer identities that precluded race and class, but simultaneously, race and class weren't ignored. So with that, we'll look at 3 decades and 3 novels. Go Tell It on the Mountain in 1953, his first novel. Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone in 1968. And Just Above My Head, his last novel in 1979. In doing so, this video will assess how James Baldwin put the civil rights movement and gay liberation movement in conversation through literary prose and direct activism, and the way this creates new definitions of masculinity.